Alisyn, and today we're going once around the intersection of art, business, and technology. I work at General Motors as an investment manager for their venture capital arm, and I am working on my first deal. I can't tell you any details yet because we aren't through it, but I'm super excited. So with that, I look at lots of new technologies that we can put onto our cars and try to find the right business partners within GM, and then also work on my network outside of the company. I operate Corktown Studios. So we have studio space for rent, we have musicians that practice here, and then we also do gallery events, music events, and try to get our resident artists' artwork out into the city. That keeps me pretty busy. I'm an artist as a part of that. I'm a saxophone player in Botanical Fortress. I am the chair of the board for Green Living Science, getting my MBA online. I do a lot with DC3, so one of the big volunteer initiatives that I'm hoping to work on right now is to link up the tech startups in Michigan with design startups to help really move the whole startup economy of Michigan forward and help all of the companies here to be able to compete with a lot of the companies that are coming from the coasts, where you do see really refined presentations and things like that. I think we have all of the skill sets here that are necessary, but just trying to bridge those gaps a bit more. So I grew up in Brighton, Michigan. I grew up on 10 acres kind of outside of town, so a lot of my childhood was spent either by myself or playing with my older sister outside. We had a big forest and were encouraged to go outside and explore, and we had access to a lot of art supplies and things like that. So growing up, we were always encouraged to be very creative and hands-on and not be in the house making a mess. So my dad had a lot of woodworking tools, and he works as a sound engineer. He does designs for concert halls and things like that. So he always had access to equipment for listening to music. That was a very big part of growing up. And access to building things. So I would steal hammers and nails and use a really nice piece of wood to make a birdhouse and surprise him when he got home. Wow. And my mom was an avid sewer, and so growing up we had sewing lessons and learned to start making little outfits for my dolls and things like that at a young age. And we didn't have, I had, some Barbies and stuff, but if there was ever a request, like I had asked for a microscope one Christmas, which was a bit outside of the scope of Christmas gift expense levels, but my parents figured it out because they were very good at encouraging all of us to pursue those types of endeavors. I had to work very hard in school, so I took a lot of advanced classes and stuff, but it was never easy. The way that I process information is definitely informed by my creativity, and it leads to just a different way to think through problem solving. So when I went to engineering school, a lot of engineering school is learning equations so you can learn the tools that you have to solve a problem. And growing up, when we were out, out in our backyard trying to build a fort, it's like you have sticks and grass, figure it out. And so I think that creativity in making things growing up kind of lent my ability to just say, all right, what is available and what can I make with it? I was in school, I was on the basketball team and the track team and stuff like that, and I just never really clicked. My mom would always encourage me to go hang out with these people that I had known most of my childhood life, and I would go and it would be fun, but it never really clicked. And my senior year, I actually quit the basketball team, which was a big deal when you're 17 years old, and started hanging out with a bunch of musicians and realized that I fit in a lot more with that group, but I was like in all of the AP classes. And so that's when I started to realize that like I could click with people, and it's really been a bit when I was at college. Most of my friends were art students and musicians, not engineers. And it's been more recently that I've been finding people that kind of span both worlds. My mother, bless her heart, wanted me to go to art school. I had to pay for college, so I was like, how the hell am I going to, I'm not going to art school. How am I going to make money to pay for this? And that's why I decided to go to engineering school. And even she wanted me to go to art school. My dad worked with musicians, so I had grown up like going to concerts and stuff. So musicians, they were like, oh, their music's not that good. Like, I remember when I saw Pink Floyd play Animals live, and it's like, well, I can't match that, sorry. So it was weird because my parents were probably more supportive of, not, you know, being a bad kid. Like, I was an extremely good kid. Not being a bad kid, but checking out that kind of stuff. It didn't offend them. Because that was the world that my dad existed in for a long time. I went to U of M in Ann Arbor, and they take all the incoming freshmen for 3 days. You have to go for like an on-site orientation. And so I went and partied with my friends at night. I would wake up and go, all the engineers got shipped off to North Campus to go, you know, learn about the classes and what life would be like as an engineering student. And I remember sitting through one of the discussions, and the guy talking to us, some professor, was explaining how engineers were awesome, and that when we graduated, we would be driving around our BMWs, speeding past all of the other students that would be sitting around eating their nuts and berries. And in my mind, I was like, what's wrong with nuts and berries? Like, I don't need a BMW. And so the first probably 5 months at U of M, I was like, all right, and not engineering school. What am I going to do instead? And I started taking architecture studios. And that was awesome. And I almost transferred over into the School of Architecture. But then I got a really big engineering scholarship and was like, okay, just kidding, I'll stay. That's kind of the time when I really started to be able to use all of my technical background and bring it to bear in the design creativity though. And so that was pretty cool because I figured, all right, I'll stay in engineering and learn more about structures so then in the future I can work with architects or become an architect that actually understands how to make this stuff stand up. Because that, a lot of times, we'd be working on building models and things, and you can draw something, but just because you can draw it doesn't mean you can build it. And I was able to do a lot of fun stuff understanding physics and make some pretty cool models at that point. But that's when I really started to realize that I liked working at that intersection where you understand all of the background of how and why it works, but also bring to bear an understanding of the design process and creativity, and not just totally doing away with the essence of an idea because you can't get it to stand up. How can you figure out a way to mediate? You've got a lot of people that can be very technical and a lot of designers that can be great designers, but people that can translate in between, that's not very common. I stuck with engineering school, and then I studied abroad in Germany. And when I was there, I was like, my goodness, people actually use, you know, solar panels and transit, and came back for my senior year ready to work on energy. So originally I had wanted to go into concert hall design, so working in architecture and acoustics. And then did an about face and decided I wanted to work in energy, and graduated conveniently in 2008 as the economy was just in a free fall. And I had an interview at GE to work on wind turbines, and the flight that I had got canceled, and then the one that I could get to get there, they were like, oh, we'll already be done with everything. So I was like, shit, you can crap. So I went back to school and was talking with a professor, just slumped into her office and asked her, what do I do? I thought I had my dream job on the line, and now I've got nothing. And she was working with GM, actually on the Chevy Bolt. And so on that project, she's like, well, I have some internships. Would you like that? Which isn't always ideal when you're graduating, but I knew I didn't have any work experience. I was like, what's the Chevy Bolt? And so I started as an intern, and it was just an awesome experience because people had done like electric cars before, but trying to get one that's that complex where you can both use electricity or gasoline, and the level of attention to detail that went into the design, it was so much fun. And I worked in the space of charging, so there were like 4 other people working on it, not 400, and I got to get into probably a lot more detail and exposure to working with standards and suppliers and more of the business than you usually do 8 months into the job, and that was a really fun experience. Learning, even internally learning to shut off the parts of your brain that say no and not listening to other people that say no. I think throughout most of my youth, I was creative but didn't quite understand that. And then going through university, I started to understand my creativity better, but realized the economics of paying for college are a good driving force. And I think I've come into my own a bit more now, but when I first started out as an engineer at GM, living in Detroit, doing art in my spare time, a lot of people looked at me funny. Like, the idea of an engineer being an artist in and of itself was kind of weird. In 2008, living in Detroit was just like, why would you ever pick there of all places? And I'm like, I work for a company that's going bankrupt, so I want to save some money. And found out that I loved the place and the people here, but for a very long time I had 2 lives. I had my work life, and then I had my after work life. And it felt very much like I was trying to be 2 different people. I was trying to be this like professional engineer that just looks like everybody else, acts like everybody else, is just like everybody else. And then in the art stuff, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be as an artist. Still don't think I have that one figured out. But now, especially I think working in ventures and business, it's all about big ideas and making it happen. Having a vision and then getting there. Be it a vision for a painting or a sculpture that you want to do, or a new business. And so I find a lot more people that think more similarly, which is nice, but still good to get out and remember that you're not just insularly with a lot of people like yourself. I don't know if it's advice as much as a lot of the turns that I've made in my life have been driven by somebody saying, no, you probably can't do that, you can't handle it, or you won't be able to figure it out. And I'm like, screw you, watch me. And I think that it's not really advice, but that's been a driving force when the decision is, should I do this or should I not? If somebody's saying, I don't think you can, maybe not put this one out. So somebody's like, I don't think you can do this. And then boom, I'll get an idea in my head, and it's probably not the best way to operate, but that it drives me. I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. Recognizing that both, artists and entrepreneurs, anybody that has a big vision, we're all the same kind of people. I see a lot of divisions of visionaries. There's visionaries in all sorts of things, and they're very passionate, and we don't have to be divided. And I think that that's something that I hope as time goes on, people start to recognize more and more. If you are an awesome artist, you are just as valuable as an awesome entrepreneur coming up with a tech idea, and you both need each other. I see more and more divisions where it's like, well, we don't need art, or we don't really need that tech, and it's like, if we can get passionate people of all different skills working together, I think we can make a lot more awesome things happen. I'm Alisyn Malek, and thank you for joining me on Once Around.